It's 7 feet tall, 7 feet wide, and 111 feet long. You know it, you love it. It's the Shades Cahaba Underpass. Welcome to the Shades Cahaba Oral History Project. I'm your host, Sean Wright. This episode is about the Shades Cahaba Underpass. Now, some of you may call it the tunnel, but from the time it was conceived in the early 1950s and for the next 40 or 50 years, it was called the Underpass. I'd actually forgotten it was called the Underpass until a schoolmate of mine reminded me on social media. No matter what you call it, it's been a favorite of Shades Cahaba students for close to 70 years. If you can believe it, Independence Drive, formerly known as Montgomery Highway, was a sleepy country road at one time. Now, over the years, the city grew, and the city's over Shades Mountain grew, creating more and more traffic on Montgomery Highway. Now, the typical way you would travel today from downtown Birmingham to Vestavia Hills would be to take the Red Mountain Expressway, travel through the cut in the mountain, pass between Shades Cahaba and Piggly Wiggly, and over the underpass. And after you crest the hill at Salter, you would travel down to Shades Creek Parkway before you climb Shades Mountain to Vestavia Hills. If you could catch all the lights, this trip would take mere minutes. Well, back in the day, things were much different. The typical way you would travel from Birmingham would start at Lone Pine Gap, which you now know as Richard Arrington Boulevard at Vulcan. At the Homewood city limits, it turns into 18th Street. You would follow this straight into downtown Homewood. Now, some of you have heard of the curve in Homewood. Some may think it is because of the curved buildings, but the road curved right in front of those buildings, where the Track Shack and other businesses are now. Homewood turned the curve into the T sometime back in the 1990s, creating what we know today. I remember people getting so upset about this change and that it would destroy Homewood. Yeah, guess how that turned out. Now that we've gone through the curve, we're on 29th Avenue South, which would have taken us right in front of the Homewood City Hall, today's Aloft Hotel. Now we're approaching Montgomery Highway. Notice how the road starts to turn towards the south at the red light? This was part of the curve of the highway. There was also a motel where Independence Plaza is now, the Regions Building. Now, a road did go north at this curve. It took you into a residential neighborhood where you could access Bonita Drive and Ventura Avenue and a good chunk of the Rosedale community. On the 1929 Totten map that was included in Cheryl Sumi's book, Homewood, Life of a City, it shows all of the Rosedale homes that were bulldozed for the Red Mountain Expressway and Highway 280 interchange projects. But back to our travels. After the curve onto what we now know as Independence Drive, we pass Shades Cahaba and up the hill to Salter Road. Here's a fun fact. That ridge we're on is called Bald Ridge, and Wellington Road is right on top of that. And if you live in Wellington Road and are in fact bald, that is just a coincidence. But back to Salter Road. To your left is Old Montgomery Highway. Have you wondered where it got its name? This was the highway. You drop down towards Windsor Drive, then back up the hill and past the Lakeshore Foundation, or what was in the past, the Jefferson County Tuberculosis Sanatorium. You would cross Shades Creek at the Armory and wind your way up Shades Mountain. Improvements started on Montgomery Highway in the 1940s, including making a steeper grade on Shades Mountain that we're all familiar with now. It would travel past what would be Brookwood Hospital a few decades later. At the bottom of the hill, a bridge was constructed at Shades Creek Parkway and a road constructed to Salter Road. On the other end of the city, they removed the railway bridge beneath Vulcan and widened the roadway at Lone Pine Gap and into Homewood. Now, if you pick up a copy of the Images of America book, Homewood, by Martha Wortley and Jake Collins, you can see some photos of the road and how it looked, specifically on pages 34 and 80. And of course, if you're listening to a podcast about a tunnel to an elementary school in Homewood, my guess is you already own the book. Construction lasted into the 50s, and this entire roadway was widened and improved. Don Harbour mentioned in his episode that the boys loved to play in the bushes and undergrowth that bordered Montgomery Highway, only to be torn out as the road was widened.
We were trying to challenge girls to go through it, and not many were willing to do it. One thing I remember that no one would believe today is that on the school side of the tunnel, there were bicycle racks, and we would bring our bicycles and just put them in the rack or lie them on the ground, and nobody ever messed with them.
There's still some bicycle racks there.
Are there? Really?
There are,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they wouldn't last there very long.
More roads meant more traffic, so a student underpass was added to link the western access of Oxmoor Road with Shades Cahaba School. In the March 16, 1952 Birmingham News, it was reported, "The fur was still flying Saturday over the proposed widening of the Montgomery Highway from Bob's Tourist Court to Oxmoor Road in Homewood." It seems there was a dispute over the right-of-way, and another one arose concerning the underpass. It seems that Hill Grocery had some concerns. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of the issues, but let's just say that Hill's Grocery was going to lose quite a bit of parking and was hoping to get the project eliminated. They seemed to be a little testy as the highway project was also encroaching on their property. Hill's Grocery is now the Piggly Wiggly. Over the next couple of months, issues were worked out, and all that needed to be decided was to have stairs or ramp access. Needless to say, the ramp won, and the underpass was built. Now, keeping the tunnel free of trash and graffiti has been an ongoing battle. Lee Seitz, former student, wrote to me early on with his underpass memories. Back when he was in third grade, during 1979 to 80, the art teacher in her classes made the tunnel an art project. They did initial sketches on paper, then divided the tunnel walls into sections, and they painted flowers over several class periods. How great must it have been for the kids to see their work every day as they walked to school? Well, a mere 6 years later, in 1986, the gangster movie Vern Miller, starring Scott Glenn, shot scenes at the underpass. Unfortunately, they had to paint over all the work to get the shot they needed. After doing more research on the underpass, it seems that the tunnel had been painted multiple times. During Principal Sue Grogan's time at Shades Cahaba, they had another art project.
Well, we were beginning to have problems with graffiti. Of course, that is just a draw for somebody that would like to spray paint something in public, because you can do it very secretively at night. One of the jobs that I asked Philip Garner, who was the employee that helped us with the building and as far as maintenance or construction plans and that kind of thing, I always ask him, will you please check the tunnel or underpass every morning before the kids walk to school in case there's something that needs to be covered up. Right. And it was not uncommon. It wasn't frequent, but it wasn't uncommon for him to have to have a can of paint where he would paint over a word or a piece of artwork that wasn't quite right. So, going back to the Shades Cahaba way, Mary Jane Coker was our art teacher, and we started brainstorming some things that we might be able to do to turn that into a piece of art that might discourage folks from defacing it. So
you're going to make them feel bad.
Possibly.
Nice. I like that.
So the art club at the time, she had a group of 4th and 5th graders who did special projects in the community or at the school, and they did their research on appropriate artwork, large, bold pieces, not intricate, but kind of a folk art look that would be easy to paint on concrete and in a tunnel, and bright colors that would discourage folk from doing harm to those walls. So I guess it took probably 2 or 3 Saturdays for them to go and outline the design that they had planned and then to paint it. It was a real boost, and everybody had to, even if you didn't walk that way home or if you were a car rider, everybody had a chance to go and take a look.
Right. I remember it well, and I was probably, I was an adult without any kids in the school at that time, so I think it made a big impact on some of those kids, and I'm using air quotes here, kids who got to do it, who are now adults, and
I think so.
I think they miss it, to be honest. But I have to say, I do like the lights. We have lights in there.
Yes.
It seems relatively clean for a 50, 60, 70-year-old tunnel.
Yes.
And it's, as another one of my friends pointed out, there's nothing like when it was dark and just screaming through there on a bicycle and hoping you didn't hit anything.
Right, exactly. Those grates on either side and at the bottom were a little bit bumpy.
That'll wake you up.
Yeah, it will wake you up.
Yeah. My kids always wanted to walk through the tunnel, and with Ethan especially, I'm like, we live on this side. I can't drive you over there just so you can walk through the tunnel. But I walked home most every day through that, so it always made a big impact on me.
Now, one last story I heard from a classmate of mine. I'll call him Mark to protect his identity. It seems he used the tunnel in a way it was not intended. Here I'm telling Herman Maxwell about it. I did have a high school friend who said he drove his car through there.
Oh, wow. Your car could have been very big.
No, it wasn't, if I remember the car correctly.
It could have been very big if he drove it through there.
Yeah. Today, the underpass is probably in the best condition it has ever been in. There are bright lights powered by a solar panel. The walls are painted and safety yellow paint is on the roof. Years ago, someone had the bright idea to pave the walkway. Mercifully, the pavement has been scraped away in the past year. And the smell is gone. Whoever fixed that needs a medal. Well, I hope you enjoyed our trip back to the underpass.
The tunnel.
No, it's the underpass.
If you visit shadescahabahistory.com, there's a video on the bottom of the homepage of me walking through the underpass. I took it back in 2010, and it's pretty close to what it is now, but it's a fun walk down memory tunnel. You see what I did there? Thanks again. If you love the show or even liked it a little, please tell one person about it. And don't forget to visit the blog at shadescahabahistory.com and like us on Facebook. Instead of the usual ending of music, I'm going to take my cue from CBS Sunday Morning and leave you with Sounds from the Underpass. I recorded it as I walked from one side of the underpass to the other.